Faizal Khamisa joined by Michael Grange to talk about the latest news as it pertains to the Toronto Raptors and the NBA. Most of the Raptors that were left in Toronto on their way to Fort Myers today. That's where the team will hold their next wave of training camp before the resumption of the NBA season. Michael, not all of them will leave from Toronto to Fort Myers because some of them are coming from the States themselves. What do you know about the plan to meet up in Florida?
Well, they had a team plane that left Monday afternoon and landing in the Fort Myers area, and they'll be staying in Naples. And, word is they're training at Florida International University. That still hadn't been 100% confirmed, but I believe that's the case. And but already most of the players were already in the States.
Yeah.
Even the ones who've been up here in Toronto, for example, they've begun filtering back. And this stage is really, it's not really a ramp up in training so much, Faisal, because it's still just one-on-one with a coach. With everyone's got to wear a mask and they're wiping down the basketballs and all of that. But it really is just a matter of getting teams in their relative markets, Toronto being an exception in that they're going to a different market. So that everyone can get together. They begin test. The real thing is they begin the COVID testing on Tuesday.
Yes.
And this is all about getting organized before they go into the bubble in Orlando.
Well, they're the first ones beyond the teams that obviously reside in Florida, the Orlando Magic, the Miami Heat, to make this move. Michael, what will the NBA be looking to try to learn, given the fact that our Florida in itself has seen a pretty drastic rise in numbers of COVID-19 cases over the last little while?
Right, in particular in that kind of Clearwater, Tampa area, which is, this is the side of Florida that they're on right now. I think the Raptors case is a little bit different, right? And I think probably an advantage, because as the other teams kind of gather, say in Memphis or gather in Denver or gather in wherever their market is, everyone after their practice or their training, they can all go their separate ways, and different states are open to different degrees. Whereas the Raptors have the advantage of they're all in one place. It is a kind of a controlled environment. I think there will be a kind of a recognition among the team that, listen, we aren't going to go from here and go to whatever nightclub or bar or restaurant is open.
Right.
To the extent they are, and I'm not saying they would anyway. But so I think they're kind of almost getting a head start on the discipline that's going to be required to do well in this whole brave new world.
Michael, you and I spoke a few weeks back, and you talked about how the bubble in Orlando might be the safest place to be when everything actually starts to happen. Has there been any indication from anybody that you've talked to that suggests, at least, again, from the people you're connected with, that might not actually be the case, or the return to play plan is still up in the air, given what we've heard from players over the last couple of weeks and reports over the last couple of weeks as well?
I think there's still a lot of optimism that the bubble can work, and kind of in a weird way, as many different states are spiking, different areas in different states are spiking, and certainly Florida is no exception in that regard. It's almost like the sooner you can get into a controlled environment where everyone around you is being tested, and there's a much greater observation of things like social distancing and the other measures that are required, masking and whatever, you're probably better off. And I think the challenge is going to be bridging these next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And all of that. And there are some concerns about, in Orange County, which is the county kind of adjacent to where the Disney Resort is, there does seem to be a bit of an uptick in cases at the moment, as there isn't all over Florida. And, that's maybe the weak link and area of concern, is employees coming in and out to work at the resort.
Mm-hmm.
And work in the bubble and kind of keep the engine running, behind the scenes. How can they be tested, and what kind of restrictions and risks they present to the whole process. But overall, I think you've got people in there, they're motivated, they're being tested regularly. They want to get it right. There's a lot of incentive for them all to get it right.
Yeah.
So I think there's some optimism they can.
Do you believe, ultimately they will get it right?
I do.
Yeah.
I think it seems inevitable that we're going to see some positive tests as teams get together. We've seen that sort of almost regularly when things get up and running. But I think once you're back in a team environment and a team routine, and the whole purpose looms larger, then I think people's better instincts will kick in, and and I think the whole purpose of them beginning tested being 23rd when training camp doesn't even start to the 9th is that listen, if we get a test or two in these first couple of days,
we try to knock that out of the.
We can deal with it and move on.
Yeah. You mentioned the word routine. It's something I think nobody in the world has had for the last 3.5 months. Michael, what in particular have the Raptors been doing to kind of stay united and try to keep some sort of team cohesiveness during all of this?
Well, I think there's been a lot of, the stuff that any other workplace has been doing, right? There's Zoom calls. There's, I think one thing they've done a lot is the coaching staff has been tasked with communicating with various players and really kind of almost going to basketball school. So it's like, listen, Fred VanVleet, or listen, Norm Powell, whoever it might be. These are your clips. It's kind of the kind of exit interview you might do at the end of a season, where you kind of look at your body of work. This is where you really thrive. These are where you're struggling. This is how we're going to attack, some of these weaknesses on a individual level and go at it. Well, typically that you take that in the off season and you come back and hopefully in training camp. Well, this is kind of a unique environment where you can kind of look at what you did in the first 60 games, have now this big chunk of time to kind of address it and figure it out, and then hopefully apply it in these next 8 games in the playoffs. So, and that's one thing you've heard from the players is, that just that kind of moment where you can kind of step away and go, what was working for me? What do I need to do better? And then get right back in and apply to it.
It's the first time, Michael, in just over 3 months that an NBA team is actually traveling to go somewhere, and that should be some sort of level of optimism. The Raptors, of course, heading to Fort Myers to begin their, reuniting of sorts before they head to Orlando. Michael, thank you so much for joining me. I imagine again we'll do this soon, and I love it. I just love it. I just love it.
Thanks, Faisal. Take care.